The Boss in the Sauce Show.
Boss in the Sauce Show.
Boss in the Sauce Show.
Boss in the Sauce Show. Here we go.
Georgia Bulldogs sitting at the number one spot right here in the SEC East. My man Kirby Smart's back on his 7th year. 7 years purely right here at this school. His total record is 66-15. Offensive coordinator is Todd Mankin, and defensive coordinator is Will Muschamp. Kirby's has some peaks and valleys with this team up to this point, but he's definitely had some peaks winning the national championship last year as they went 14-1, 8-0 in the conference. The offense scored about 38 points per game, 191 on the ground, 252 in the air. The defense held them to 10 points a game, 79 yards on the ground, 190 in the air. He's done a great job here. And the question right here is, can he return some people here to move forward now? So according to my theories and philosophies that, and the process of building a team, in the 7th year right here, he should be stacked with some depth. And we're going to really see is it really his coaching and recruiting or whatever, or, maybe did he just get lucky? What you think about this team going into 2022, Big Ragoo?
I think we're going to see more of the same with Georgia. They were early on, you had Daniels come in from USC, who was the starter, right? Mm-hmm. Then Bennett comes in, towards the end of the season. And, everybody was wanting Daniels to be the quarterback. And I think Stetson Bennett earned his keep for sure on this team. When you win a national championship, it's going to be kind of hard to throw that kid out of that spot. So Daniels, he went on to West Virginia. And, they lost a ton of talent. They only got 10 returning starters, which, that you bringing up the depth issue with Georgia is not going to be an issue, because if you go back and look how this team's recruited, and a lot of people that know this for years, but Georgia is richly deep in talent. They're like number 3 in the country for high school talent coming out. And I think all things being equal, Florida, Texas, Georgia, and California talent-wise, there's a lot of rich talent in Georgia. So they're going to be loaded up. And like you said, is it going to be a concern? Not in my book. A team that yields 10 point, a little over 10 points a game in defense, and is going to be ready to rock and roll on offense. They're going to have their running back in place. And the offensive line is probably where they got nicked up the most, but I think, the next up level is going to play big here. And I think Georgia's going to be sitting in a good spot. We have a lot of coaching changes, which we know in the SEC, which that's going to probably like 7 new coaches. So they've got to catch up to speed. But, the old dogs are going to still play their old tricks, with Kirby Smart being one of those.
I absolutely agree. And this year at the running back position, they bring back 3 of 5. So they definitely got some depth over there that they continue to building on. And last year in the running game, they were able to just plug and play players where they needed them. And overall on the line, they do get 3 of 5 back on the line. So, if the offensive coaching is real, it's nothing to coach up 1 or 2 players. It's when you lose 4 or 5 of your men and they were all together. Yeah. These 3 in the inside can help them out and get them going on the outside as well and lock it down. So the only big loss that I seen they took was wide receiver Jermaine Burton, who transferred over to Alabama. And he was a pretty solid receiver over there. But sometimes some people can say that receivers come a dime a dozen. So it depends on how you look at that. Now, the problem on defense is they did lose most of that defensive line, which was one of their strengths, to the NFL. So we'll see how much depth and everything he can plug in right there. At the linebacker position, he's usually always solid. You know what I'm saying? Even though he has a solo returner this year, he may be able to, once again, use some of his depth to fill some of those spots.
Yeah, he's got Neal and Smith are coming back, so he should be good there on the outside.
Yeah. Smith is coming back. And then the number 1 pass defense goes to this. And, passing defense, you got to look at that as a system, not always so much the players, because it's how some of those defensive coordinators teach the system. And, whether you cover zone or whether you're doing run, man, and what your responsibilities is makes a big difference, and sometimes can make mediocre players better and better players, mediocre. So I think that they'll do well out there in the passing area. What's your overall look on Georgia, and any bet trends or anything you looking to follow with Georgia?
Yeah, what I tried to do last year at Georgia, especially with how stout their defense was, I tried to pick a couple times during the course of the year teams that I thought maybe would score more than 10 points, because a lot of their team totals against was like 10. Like one, for instance, I got it took me all game to cash it, but they scored early. South Carolina was like 10.5 or something like that. So I thought they were kind of like hitting some early season form, not form because they had a new head coach and they had some offensive struggles, but they were pretty good on defense. I figured, maybe a turnover or two would put them in good field position, which Georgia did a good job of taking care of the football too last year, by the way. But anyways, one trend I was looking to bet against on Georgia was the team total, because their team total against was really low, and I cashed out twice. Once was with South Carolina, and then there was another spot, but I lost once. I played it 3 times, and I was successful twice. So maybe look at with all the changes going on in the SEC this year, that's going to have to give me another type of look, I would think, because depending on and then when they get outside of a cross conference, when they play somebody in the West, somebody like Bama or Auburn's is a big game for them when they match up with them. But Auburn's defense is good too. But those are some of the looks I'll be looking at. Probably team total overs against Georgia's defense, even though they're going to be still good. Maybe not as good as last year, but still good.
Yeah, I'm gonna call for them to be at least I want to say 5 points up on the defensive side. Maybe they get into giving up maybe 15 to 20 points a game.
Yeah, 20 was a big jump.
Those defensive linemen that they lost were huge. Like those were the playmakers and to change the game in the national championship. So I don't expect the defense to do as well. So I will be looking at maybe some overs in some situations against some, high passing team. But we have to, pay attention to him. And the main thing here is, does he have enough depth to come in and continue what he's doing? It's going to be a big year for him if he survives this one. If he can even return back to the college playoffs, this is going to make him, his value go so high up in this one right here. So
I mean, they've been knocking at the doorstep for a lot of years. They just could never beat Bama. So finally, when they did, they get the national championship, the first one in over 40 years for them.
Let's say he gets over the hump. But let's say